Welcome to Bunch Formation, your newest favorite college football show. I am Chris Vannini, and I am getting fined $50,000 for storming the field.
I am David Ubben, and Tennessee's dark mode, it's better than the Penn State whiteout.
You can't be saying that after they lost, man.
I did.
I will say that entrance with the T opening up in the darkness as they shine the light.
It's so good.
If you haven't seen it, just Google or search somewhere Tennessee night entrance, and you'll see a video of it. That was really cool. I gotta say
they've done it for a few years, but they keep adding stuff. And I don't know. I didn't go last year. I forget. I've been a couple times, but they just Tennessee's game management stuff is good. But
I'll tell you whose game management stuff is. I'll tell you whose game management is not good. That's the Miami Hurricanes, who I went and saw on Saturday. You were at Tennessee. I was at SMU. We're going to talk about both those games, both huge results for the college football playoff. We got a big show. Auburn has fired Hugh Freeze. We're going to talk about that job. 3 top 10 teams went down right before the first CFP rankings of the year. We got more Week 10 reactions, conference races, all that stuff as we head into the final month of the regular season here, where everything seems up for grabs. We will be live on YouTube during or after, at least right after the college football playoff show on Tuesday. Is this the one that is with the basketball game in between?
I don't think so. I think they wait for that's like week. Because basketball starts this week, but I don't think the Champions Classic is until like the second week. I like the Champions Classic, but yeah.
Either way, don't know exactly what time yet because I haven't looked it up. But we will be live on the Bunch Formation YouTube channel as soon as the ratings are done. So go to the
channel, watch our socials, you'll see us.
Yeah, if you subscribe and hit the little bell button, it'll alert you if we're doing something. So you can know. We may go on during the show. We haven't decided that yet, but either way, we're going to want to go live right after. We may or may not put it on the feed, the podcast feed afterward, but trying to do some more video stuff. It's been difficult.
We might have a playoff game in CFP 26 to play at some point too. If you missed the Bunch Formation Bowl.
I'm not making the playoff with my Oklahoma team, I don't think.
I haven't checked the rankings. I'm too unconcerned with this number 1 spot. Shout out South Carolina.
So we haven't been able to do After Dark on Saturday as much because one of us or both of us are usually at a game. So the ranking show, we're going to try to do that every week. It's an easy way to kind of get together and react to some stuff in person, so we don't have to talk rankings on the Thursday show, especially because David hates rankings. So keep an eye out for that.
I don't think I'm going to a game this week. I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think I'm going. I might still be going. Are you going to a game this week?
I don't know. I haven't even looked at the schedule. As far as I know, I don't know. But we'll see. Before we get into the show, real quick, the ESPN YouTube TV fight as of Sunday night, they haven't resolved it. This was a nightmare for me personally on Saturday. I know not everybody has YouTube TV, but it's a typical carriage fight. They pulled all the Disney channels. Thankfully, at least I was at SMU Miami, so the first 2 windows I wasn't really watching anyway. But then the night games, I couldn't get Fubo to work because it just wasn't taking my payment for some reason. I ended up just using one of those old pirate streams back in the day for all of the night games. Had them all up on my computer. I
just called the cops on you, Chris.
My computer is probably in a lot of pain right now based on the things that were popping up when I was clicking. So
this is an infuriating situation. Basically, if you don't understand what's happening, just imagine if 2 people that were way more rich than you walked into your living room and started throwing poop at each other. That's basically what's happening with the carriage fights. Is they're fighting over money that won't really affect you, but it's going to make everything more expensive for you, I'm almost certain. And for now, one of the 14, 15 weekends a year where there's college football, a lot of people miss a lot of football. I was a longtime YouTube TV subscriber. I moved and switched carriers as part of the move. It's not worth explaining. But I think it's a good product. The multi-view is awesome. But it felt pretty coordinated, Chris, that it seemed like ESPN, Disney, and its partners we're clearly pushing people to Hulu Live, which, shocker, is a business partner with ESPN and Disney and ABC.
I didn't want to do that because I was going to have to pay like $65 for that, and I was like, I just want.
I think it's a worse
weekend.
product personally. Like I've experimented with it in the past, and it's worse than YouTube TV. They don't have multi-view. It's a little clunkier. Like I think the DVR is not as slick. Like it's just not as good of a product. So ultimately, like they're going to fight, and all the viewers are going to lose, and all the college football people are going to lose. And Greg Sankey talked to some reporters at Oklahoma and Tennessee. I asked him a little bit about it. He didn't have a lot to say about it. Didn't have a lot of insight in terms of like if he knew where things stood or where things might go.
Thanks, Greg.
But yeah. But like, there's nothing people can do. Like, again, I wasn't personally affected by this, but I have been affected in the past. I know how frustrating this stuff can be, and just like missing a weekend of college football or having to do what you did, Chris, and sort of just rig up some, rope and twine situation to watch some football that doesn't work and is buggy. It's crap.
It was like the good old days when you simply did not get games in your region, depending on where you were, and you had to find other ways to do it. But hopefully,
also Fubo, terrible name, just for the record.
Change your name. I think I'm curious if it gets fixed by Monday Night Football, and usually these things get resolved before you lose football games, so it's very rare that this went through what it did. So hopefully it's fixed within the next few days. If anybody else has it, we'll keep an eye out. So anyway, that was a long intro. If you haven't checked out the show notes, we got timestamps in there if you want to jump ahead to other parts. Send all your emails and feedback to bunchformationpod@gmail.com. And we got an email from a longtime listener who we talked to in the summer. We'll get on that. Bunch Formation on all the social medias. Please leave us a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. We read every one that we get. We got one on Apple Podcast from T-Baseball24, who says, a great college football podcast. 2-part Big Ten question for you. And honestly, I don't think we're going to be able to answer this. Basically, he's asking if USC and Michigan both win out and there's one at large available, who gets in? It's got to be USC. They beat Michigan.
Yeah, they'd have better quality wins, probably.
Yeah, I think it'd be USC. And then he asks if Michigan, Oregon, USC, Iowa, and Indiana all went out. If they all have one loss, who gets in the Big Ten title game with Indiana? I don't know. There's way too many tiebreakers we're going to have to figure out as we get more going. But we will get into conference races in the recap spot of the show. He also says,
Chris, quick note from the Bunch Formation business office. If you want to sponsor the show, we're open for business. Hit us up.
Bunch Formation Pod
we got
Gmail.
We got segments. We got all kinds of stuff. So yeah, bunchformationpod@gmail.com. Let us know.
All right. And with that, we're going to start off with some news. Another coach firing. We're going to start off with the media scrum.
That's why I don't read the newspaper. Because it's garbage.
Hugh Freeze fired at Auburn after a 10-3 loss to Kentucky. The offense has been bad all season. They are 1-5 in the SEC. 4 of those losses by one score, basically 6-16 in play. Ultimately, not a surprise. Like, there's a lot of coaches for whom you see it and you're like, all right, that's going to be the thing. That's the end of it. A lot of fired coaches have that moment where they're done. And that was it for Hugh Freeze. Before we talk about
people don't like 3 points at home against the worst team in the SEC.
No, not when you have Cam Coleman on your team. Before we get into the quality of the job and the candidates, David, just your thoughts on Hugh Freeze in this job and the decision made.
Well, obviously, it was a really controversial hire. Hugh Freeze, not the most well-liked person in the college football world. Auburn took a lot of heat for what? I think when you look back at this era, obviously there'll be a lot of regret. You hired him because he was a really good offensive coach, knew how to beat Nick Saban. Nick Saban quickly retires, obviously, and the offense was never there.
Remember, he almost beat Nick Saban in the first year. That was the basically the Hail Mary, the 4th down from Milroe, right?
The grave digger 4th and 31 play.
Yeah.
Am I crazy to think that was like worse than losing that game by like double digits? Actually, I would argue that it probably was. So it just there was no point in this tenure where you thought it was working. He did a really good job in recruiting, made some really good portal ads this year. Gets Cam Coleman, keeps Cam Coleman. They add Eric Singleton. You add Jackson Arnold. The offensive line was a mess this year. They're too talented to be as bad as they were. And, when you hire a guy to beat your rivals and have a good offense and your offense stinks and you're losing to all your rivals, well, here we are. So kind of an easy decision from Auburn's perspective.
The good news for Hugh Freeze, he doesn't have to lose to Diego Pavia again because Auburn has not played Vanderbilt. Remember,
that's kind of disappointing, though, because that was the amount, basically he's just being stalked by Diego Pavia. If you forget, Diego Pavia beat him at New Mexico State when Hugh Freeze was at Liberty. Then Diego Pavia stayed at New Mexico State, beat him again when he was at Auburn. And then last year, Diego was at Vandy, beat him again at Auburn. And this year they were going to play again. And now they're not. I'm a little sad that we didn't get that. But alas, 3 points at home against the worst team in the SEC by far. We'll do that too. So,
Auburn almost hired Lane Kiffin the last time around, but Lane pulled out very late. And so then they kind of pivoted and went to Hugh Freeze. But it was never an inspired hire. Hugh Freeze was doing a good job at Liberty, but that was FCS, type of situation where what did you hire Hugh Freeze for? Was it the offensive acumen? Because you could find a lot of other people who could do it. Was it just because he beat Nick Saban at Ole Miss?
Didn't hurt.
But that was also at a time when paying players wasn't legal. And we're now in an era.
Are you saying Ole Miss was paying players, Chris?
Oh, well, they got those NCAA penalties and all kinds of stuff that they were hit. And, emails were sent to compliance@olemmiss.edu. And when that changed, Hugh Freeze just wasn't as good of a coach this time around. He was,
and Ole Miss fired him because they didn't like they were paying players and running afoul of the NCAA rules, right? That's why he got axed at Ole Miss. That's right.
Well, there were obviously the personal misconduct things that were a whole other type of thing. That's what got him fired at Ole Miss and became a thing at Liberty. Actually, didn't really become a problem at Auburn. He's just fired because he wasn't winning games. And I'm surprised.
I will say he didn't embarrass the school. He was fine for the most part in those 3
It's
years.
just that this was supposed to be the year. He stacked some good recruiting classes together, brought in a top 10 portal class. And I was there for the first game when they beat Baylor. And you're like, whoa, this team can run the ball. And after the game, Hugh Freeze is like, yeah, that was kind of tough because I want to throw the ball with the guys we got. And I was like, I think you should keep running the ball, man. And guess what they did? They stopped running the ball to the level that they should. The offense was a mess. Jackson Arnold couldn't stop taking sacks, addicted to taking sacks. And the offense ultimately went nowhere. And that takes us to quality of the job. So I graded this a B+ job because I think it's always kind of an uphill climb in a very difficult SEC. Sustaining success has been very difficult. You'll pop off for a 2010 national championship, a 2013 championship appearance, a 2017 might have got to number 1, I think, that year. But since then, they haven't won more than 6 games. But there is a lot of talent here. Cam Coleman's got eligibility left. Eric Singleton has eligibility left. Jeremiah Cobb, the running back. A lot of the dudes on defense. Even Jackson Arnold, if you like him. And so whoever that next coach is, your number 1 job is keeping those guys. Because I do think pieces here to make this a good team.
Yes. That I think is the biggest difference between, say what you will about Hugh Freeze, but he did leave the program in much better shape. People forget how bad that roster was when Brian Harsin was fired, in large part because he'd been failing so miserably at recruiting, mostly because of his own lack of effort, frankly, on the recruiting trail. Now, obviously, everything has changed. Retaining talent is different. Some of that, we'll see what the excitement level is, what the financial investment is coming in. I imagine it will be high at Auburn. So you don't really know. Like you said, you're trying to keep those guys, but ultimately, if you can keep 75% of what you have and add some in the portal, this is a team that's ready to not win big, but win and be a pretty good team immediately, I think.
Yeah. They nearly beat Oklahoma. They nearly beat Georgia. Like they've been right there a lot. But it was so clear that Hugh Freeze was not the guy to take them there because of how he was managing the offense and how poorly they were in the red zone and passing and all kinds of stuff. So let's talk candidates now. And before we get into the whole list, I think there's a clear number one who Auburn should be your top target and you should go. And that is John Summerall at Tulane, who I know just lost big to UTSA on Thursday or whatever that was. Not great. But Summerall is from Alabama. He's from Huntsville. I think his wife went to Auburn. He coached at Troy. He's coached at Kentucky and Ole Miss in the SEC. And he is your up-and-coming G5 guy. Now, I'm not saying Summerall's going to win. I'm not saying whoever the coach is going to win. There's no guarantees on when you hire a coach if it's going to work. But John Summerall has a lot of things that fit at Auburn, and Summerall is not going to be the number one guy at LSU or Florida. So this is your chance to make him your priority. He might be the number one guy for Ole Miss if Lane Kiffin leaves. And so in terms of like who you're kind of swinging at, before we get to everybody else, do you think that's crazy? My idea.
No, I think the time is right. I think LSU and Florida would do well to hire Summerall, but I think they're going to try to make bigger swings. And I think there's a level of like there's not an obvious home run candidate out there. I mean, I guess in theory, if you're Auburn, maybe you could make another run at Lane, but if you're Lane, I don't know why.
Lane's already turned you down. He's not picking you over Florida,
That's what I'm saying. Or LSU, frankly. But there's not an obvious home run candidate out there is the point. And so there's not someone that if you hire John Summerall that people are going to be disappointed, and so like obviously the track record is what it is. You win more than 70% of your games. You have a team like wherever John Summerall has been, his teams have been known because they're really good on the lines. And I think that raises your floor really, really well. And that's such an emphasis for him and his programs. And I think that's a really, really sustainable way to build a program. And so, I think this is the time is right for Auburn. I don't know that that's a slam dunk that they can get him, but that's what I would try to do if I was Auburn for sure. That'd be my number one option.
I obviously spent a few days with Summerall a couple weeks ago down at Tulane. We didn't talk specifically about the Auburn job or something like that. It's not like he told me, when that's if that opens, I'm going. I don't know. I only know him through a couple days of talking about a lot of different things. The loss to UTSA, not a great look. That very much looked like a Tulane team distracted with everything that was going on with the LSU job having opened up, and Summerall multiple times during the week having to kind of talk it away. We'll see if they bounce back because they got Memphis next week. We'll get into the American, but there's a chance there to bounce back. Or they could lose to Memphis, which they did last year. And let's take us to other potential candidates here. I'll list off some names. Tell me what you think. James Franklin, Alex Golish at USF, Georgia Tech's Brent Key, Memphis's Ryan Silverfield, Southern Miss's Charles Huff, Jimbo Fisher, Kenny Dillingham, because he coached there like in 2019. Of those names or anybody else, like what else do you possibly like here?
I mean, I think if you can get James Franklin, I think that makes a lot of sense for you. I think that consistency and trying to reestablish something. And James Franklin is pretty young, and I think he's probably pretty motivated. This is sort of the piece with some of these high-profile hires that have gone really poorly, the Jimbos, the Brian Kellys, that I do wonder. You always used to see, like in the NFL, like guys would get that huge third contract, and where it's crazy money, where everyone knows they're being overpaid. And, like, the results are almost never great, especially for, like, linemen who, like, sometimes their weight would get out of hand and they wouldn't be as fit, and they're just not as motivated or as hungry. And I wonder if there was an element of that, like, with the Jimbo piece, with the Brian Kelly piece, especially in Jimbo's
by the
case.
way, and Hugh Freeze at Auburn, because some people in the coaching world had said yeah, Hugh knows this is just going to be his last job, and he's just going to take a big paycheck. That's what other coaches have said to me that they felt about Hugh Freeze.
And I think with James Franklin, I think you're getting somebody that's angry and hungry and obviously pretty competent. And so and obviously somebody that's had a lot of success in that region and is familiar with the SEC, and I think could move people, which I think, is really important. Like the cult of personality around coaches, it's not going away because it's not about recruiting as much anymore. It's about fundraising now. I think that's where it's shifted, and you need coaches that move your money people. And I think James Franklin would do that. So that's who jumps out to me. This is going to be such a fascinating carousel because you do have these sort of retread candidates who are looming out there. You have kind of like the pipe dream of every fan base that's going to convince themselves that Saban's going to come back for you. You have a lot of these interesting G5 coaches who are probably capable, but won't really excite people and might be like the next Dan Lanning in some ways. It's going to be a really interesting coaching carousel because there's going to be the grades on this carousel are going to be hilarious because there's going to be a bunch of people that are thrilled that in 3 years are ready to fire this guy. And there's going to be some people protesting hires at airports that are going to be holding up some trophies in 2 to 3 years.
You remember the protest of Gene Chiswick when he got hired at Auburn? Coming off of a not great run at Iowa State. It kind of worked.
Cold take until it became a hot take. So, yeah.
So, speaking of that, by the way, on Tuesday on The Athletic, I have a regrade of the 2021 coaching carousel going up. So that's the Brian Kelly, Lincoln Riley, Dan Lanning. That I take the original grades people gave them. We evaluate that and I regrade it. And look, a lot of misses on there. A lot of coaches who are no longer there anymore. A lot of guys who got A's who are no longer there. So we don't know who's going to work. As for some other names here, I don't love. If I was an SEC school, I'm not touching Jimbo Fisher. No, I do not think you've seen anything that shows he is ready for this era of college football. A guy who still calls plays and does all these things. And he's very much the old school type of coach. You need the new guy who can manage the whole thing, kind of like an NFL head coach type of situation.
That I think is going to be the biggest variable in this coaching search is, Chris, you know a lot of ADs. I know fewer ADs than you, but still a lot. There's a pretty wide variance in their capability, and how many ADs understand what their program needs to succeed in 2025. It's probably smaller than people think. I think there are a lot of ADs who don't know, who aren't recognizing that the sport changing from 2019 to 2025, how much a sport has changed affects what you need in a coach. And I think there's a lot of ADs who are behind the times on that, quite frankly.
Yeah, and John Cohen, the AD at Auburn, former baseball coach. I'll say this about Auburn, though. I think it's the 4th best open job right now behind LSU, Penn State, Florida.
Penn State, probably, yeah.
I would put it ahead of Arkansas, though.
Yeah.
But of the open SEC jobs, Auburn might have the most stable administration right now, which is crazy to say for Auburn. A place that's gone through various coups and all kinds of things. They've got a president who's been solid and is aware of athletics. They gave an extension to Cohen a couple years ago. He's not going anywhere just yet. This isn't like it has been previous years where you're firing ADs and changing this and that, and the boosters are trying to do something. Look at LSU with the governor sticking his hand in everything. Florida doesn't have a president, and they have an AD on the way out. Arkansas maybe, but Auburn's actually pretty stable, and it's why I do think the upside of this job is better than it has been. Brent Key would be interesting at Georgia Tech if you can pull him away from his alma mater in the areas. Coached at Alabama. I think that might be interesting. Charles Huff, I don't know if he makes that big of a jump yet, but he won the Sun Belt last year at Marshall.
Yeah.
Goes to Southern Miss, takes over a 1-win team. They're 6-2 this year. He's coached at Alabama. He's coached at Penn State. Very good recruiter. Maybe it's not this cycle, but I do think Charles Huff could be a guy.
I don't know, man. He's a guy that I don't think he's going to get that many people fired up, but there's a lot of programs that are going to need coaches. And, it'd be interesting, if Lane leaves, does Ole Miss look around and be like, we could do worse than Charles Huff? Like I said, it's going to be a weird cycle. There's going to be a lot of jobs, and there's going to be a lot of fan bases who aren't that excited about their guy who end up getting somebody that really fits them. So, to quote the Rolling Stones, you can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you just might find you get what you need, Chris. That's the motto of the 2025 coaching search, frankly.
It's the model of every coaching carousel. We got an email from our friend Niall in Scotland. And for people who don't remember, Niall reached out in the early days of the podcast, had discovered college football, and wanted to know what team he should pick to be the team he roots for. We made cases for Oregon, for Ole Miss. There was a Boise in there.
And Niall, he wasn't into it.
Texas A&M. Niall eventually went with Auburn, and a reason for that, though, was because of the Netflix series, which I didn't think it was great, but Niall liked the Auburn whole thing. So in light of the Hugh Freeze news, he reached out today, actually, on Sunday. Hey, Chris and David, still listening from Scotland. I caught some heat from David when I announced that I was an Auburn fan. He said the coach was a reason. He said the coach was a reason to be weary. Well, with Freeze now frozen out, am I going to be okay long term? I like Summerall for this job, but I still don't really know what I am talking about. Cheers, Niall. Now, I would make the case that actually, if you're an Auburn fan, I think you can actually feel pretty good right now because of that that upside that I said. If you can get someone like a John Summerall in, and if you can keep Cam Coleman and Jeremiah Cobb and some of these guys, I think you'll feel good about that. You're not going to know if you keep those guys until the portal happens. So you don't know for sure, but like, I'd feel better than here. I'll ask you this, David, because you didn't like him picking Auburn, because of Hugh Freeze. Do you think it'd be better to pick Auburn now than when he did, though?
I mean, I guess it depends on who they hire, right? But yeah, I mean, I have my opinions about which coach I think are good fits and which coaches wouldn't be. So I think but I think Auburn has a robust pool of candidates. I think they'll be okay. I think there's a lot of places out there for them to be in good shape, making a hire. And like I said, the roster is in a place where, you get the right guy, you get a couple portal pickups, like 10 wins is not insane next year. And I think too, with this coaching carousel and all these hires for so long, Chris, it was like, well, Alabama, it's going to take us 3 years to get on that level. Georgia, it's going to take us 3 years to get on that level. There's nothing like that in the SEC now. So, you stay healthy, you win a couple turnover battles, you win some close games, you make those good portal additions. Like, which teams in the SEC can't sniff 10 wins? It's a pretty long list right now, and certainly Auburn's on it.
I will say the SEC schedule's moving forward. Unfortunately for Auburn, they do have Alabama and Georgia every year on that schedule. So they kind of got the short end of the stick. As they also have Vanderbilt, who, turns out they're pretty good. So we'll see. We'll have a lot more on The Athletic about the Auburn search and on this pod as it plays out. Two other coaching news is from the last week. Real quick, Kent State promoted Mark Carney, the interim head coach, to the full-time head coach.
He's done a good job. Like Kent State is like, they are what they are, but they've been like one of the more interesting teams in the country this year. They were such a disaster a year ago, and they're like functional this year.
They're 3-5. They've broken their long losing streaks. They were in some other games. So it's probably the worst job in the country. It's one of the 3 worst jobs in the country, Kent State. They found someone who's like doing like okay. So I get that. The other one is Matt Rhule signing an extension, staying at Nebraska, as well as Rhett Lashlee staying at SMU. We will get to those when we talk about their games. And I think, with that, let's get to those games. We're going to go to the game recap section.
Kids are playing their tail off, and the coaches are screwing it up.
And actually, specifically for the ACC, David recommended we actually start with this one.
Oh, no! Disaster! What a bad idea!
That's because the ACC had 2 top 10 teams lose to unranked teams and completely blow up its playoff hopes. We're gonna do the game review bit here. We're gonna go conference by conference because it kind of all ties together within the leagues. And we're gonna start with SMU 26, number 10 Miami 20 in overtime. I was there. I was in that end zone on the field watching with one of SMU's billionaires as they win the game, storm the field. Kevin Jennings playing on 1 foot, 365 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. There was no SMU rushing game. He played his butt off. That dude was a warrior. And SMU's still in the ACC hunt now. They have 1 conference loss. The Miami side, like, I think I texted one of our group chats during the game, which was watching Mario Cristobal operate in person is like an experience. It's kind of like, whoa, here's the thing I've seen on TV so many times playing out in real life. You remember when they beat Notre Dame week 1, and we said on this podcast, I like Miami's team. I am very concerned about the coach and the game management.
Yeah, because they did weird stuff and got away with it.
Guess what happened in this game?
They did weird stuff and didn't get away with it.
12 penalties. There was a penalty on a 4th down after a whistle, a late hit.
Can we talk about the late hit,
that was called on a timeout that was called by Miami? Go ahead.
So I've been to a handful of games at SMU. Listen, it's not the loudest place in the world. Good crowd on Saturday.
It was sold out.
The idea that you couldn't hear the whistle or whatever, what happened? Like, could you really not hear the whistle there? Like the idea that like everyone else is like stopped and the guy in a crucial moment just keeps on rolling. And listen, Kevin Jennings sold it a little bit, but you just can't do that. I was watching it being like that. I mean, that breathtaking penalty. One of the more boneheaded penalties I've seen all season.
Well, everybody else stopped. And Mario Cristobal said on the sideline, like, he didn't hear the whistle. It's like, okay, that's not a defense, though.
Yeah.
You need to hear the whistle, especially when everybody else heard the whistle. Mario Cristobal, after the game, honestly, one of the saddest people I've ever seen in my life. He looked just totally, like, distraught and just down. He acted kind of surprised they called it in that spot, considering it was automatic first down on the game-tying drive on 4th down. You have no problem with the call, though, it seems.
Well, I mean, he hit the guy. I mean, I feel kind of bad for the player if he didn't hear the whistle, but, like, context clues, my guy. It's a big spot.
So,
everybody's just kind of standing there.
Not only is that 12 penalties on Miami, some of which ended drives, 2 interceptions from Carson Beck. First one, not his fault. Second one, very much his fault. The interception in overtime.
Can we talk about the second one briefly? So I watched it a few times. I don't know what the play was called, but so Malachi Toney's running like a drag, and then he kind of slips upfield as Carson Beck is throwing it. Like live, it looked like Carson Beck threw it way behind him.
Yeah.
When I watched the replay, I didn't see that Toney kind of went upfield. I'm curious if Toney like cut off a drag. I mean, he's a freshman, so like the idea of him freelancing in a crucial play is not the craziest thing. So I wish I knew more about exactly what happened on that pick. And then Carson Beck after the game, let's talk about where, they're running the same plays. I'm just executing what I'm told. Like,
yeah, that was weird.
All right, Carson, you're not helping yourself, guys. So anyway.
No, remember because he threw his player under the bus after the Louisville game too. But also,
I'd like to know more about that pick. Is all I'm saying.
The game management here by Mario Cristobal again, like stopped on 4th down one time during the game, and after SMU ties the game, 25 seconds left with a timeout, they just kneel and go to overtime. Like you just need a field goal to win, and it wasn't even a run. See if we break off a play, a draw, or a screen or something. Just kneeled it. So it's like, look, maybe the interception by Beck, in overtime was like, hey, maybe you don't trust your quarterback for good reason, but like that was shocking. And he just,
if I'm paying a quarterback $3 to $4 million, I'm probably going to let him toss it a couple times, 25 seconds. So I need a field.
Yeah, you would think so. Like you could have not watched a single play of this game and known how Miami lost. Like they are on the verge of missing the playoff again. They have lost 4 games over the last 2 years when they were a double-digit favorite. Georgia Tech, Syracuse last year, Louisville, SMU this year. Like, you look at this team and you're like, the talent is unbelievable, but they play tight. They look nervous out there. The coach looks nervous out there. They can't execute in so many of these big moments. And it's like, man, I don't know what you do if you're a Miami fan. Like, if it's not this team, who's it going to be? Like, you have everything. I saw a lot of Oregon fans jumping in afterward being like, hey, an Oregon fan here, this is what we knew you signed up for this. Like, this is the experience. He's Mario Cristobal 3 in November now with 2 of the best teams in the country. Like, that's not good enough, man. It's just not good enough.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder, last year the defense was a disaster. Made what looked like a pretty good defensive coordinator hire. And then, you had a certified dude last year. Cam Ward was dragging them to wins. And Carson Beck has been pretty good, sort of, but when he's been bad, he's been really bad. I don't think it's fair to say he cost you the game on Saturday, but that pick was, you just can't throw that ball in that spot. No. Even if Tony keeps running that drag route, that's a tight window in that spot. So that's asking a lot. But then obviously Louisville was a complete disaster. And so I wonder, if you have this year's defense with Cam Ward, if it goes differently, but that's easier said than done. So I'm with you. It's just got to be pretty frustrating if you are a Miami fan at this point. Seeing that Miami, Chris, are we in agreement that Miami, if you play this season out 1,000 times based on pure talent, they're probably one of the 5 best teams in the country.
Yeah, I think I had them at number 1 at one point. We said on this, here, we think they're the most complete team in the country.
Yeah.
But then the last couple of weeks, you start to realize, like, this team can't run the ball great, and they're not explosive. They're not getting explosive plays on
the vertical game is a non-factor. When they break big plays, it's like Tony on like a 12-yard dig, and then he makes somebody miss and then outruns people. Like, that's the only thing that they do.
In SMU is, I think, the worst pass defense in the ACC, and they were without their like best pass rusher. They could not get pressure on Carson Beck. Like, I was sitting with Andrew Adelson in the press box, and we're just like waiting every drive. How's Miami going to blow this? Because they just look like the better team, and there would be 1 or 2 things every drive that just mess it up: an offensive pass interference, a false start, a timeout wasted because of a play clock, and it's just like it kept happening. It looked like a team that was not organized very well. On the flip side, Rhett Lashlee signed a 2-year extension to 2032 at SMU. He's staying there. I talked to him Friday. I went down to SMU and talked to him for a little bit. He did not tell me about this contract that was coming, so I'm kind of mad about that. He was sandbagging it. But I as I was talking to him about the game, what he saw from Miami, I just kind of wanted to talk like, what am I going to be keeping an eye on in this game? And then I asked him like about the coaching carousel and stuff. And I got the sense from that conversation of like, it doesn't seem like a guy who wants to leave right now. Like, they're in the ACC. They had their best recruiting class ever last year in the modern era. The next class is going to be even better. But they just went to the playoff last year. He's got all this support. He's got a new AD and a president who are all fully aligned. And you compare that to like what's happening at LSU. Like, this is the new world of college football where like you can be at SMU and accomplish a lot of what you want to. And SMU's not going anywhere now. Like, and Lashlee, remember, was the offensive coordinator at Miami under Manny Diaz. And when he got the SMU job, he brought a ton of Miami guys over, and they helped take SMU to the playoff. And if you're Miami, like, what if you had just hired Rhett Lashlee and given him the resources that you've given Mario Cristobal? Like, you probably feel a lot better than that. So SMU's in a good spot here too, and Miami's realizing maybe what they could have had.
I do wonder, though, if you're Rhett Lashlee, like, if it gets to the point where one of these big SEC jobs is calling, if you can still say no, even with all of the alignment issues and the upheaval, in the AD's office and the president's office at LSU.
I mean,
all
much bigger than
LSU.
Jobs don't get much bigger than LSU. And I thought he'd be a good fit at Florida too. But
yeah,
I don't think he'll stay there forever either. But like, I don't know. We have had the coaches at Indiana and SMU choose to stay put when jobs like Penn State and Florida and LSU are open. Like, it's just a different world now.
Mm-hmm. And even Nebraska, which
and Nebraska,
college football has changed. Like,
yeah,
okay.
Okay. Let's move on to NC State 48, number 8 Georgia Tech 36. I did not catch much of this game live because of the aforementioned YouTube TV issues, but Haynes King had 408 passing yards, 103 rushing yards. But NC State could not be stopped. They had almost 600 total yards, almost 250 rushing yards. NC State now has wins over Virginia and Georgia Tech. The Virginia game being a non-conference game. This is blown up the ACC's playoff hopes, which we'll get to in a second. But Georgia Tech, they don't have a good win. And so this plummets them, I think, in a lot of the rankings. And now you're at a spot where like 10-2 losing to NC State and Georgia. I don't know if that's getting you in the playoff. I didn't see this coming from Georgia Tech's defense.
Yeah, from their defense, it was a little bit surprising. I've liked NC State. I knew that NC State is flawed and really inconsistent. But, I saw this team in week 1, and obviously no Hollywood Smothers. But Jaden Scott goes for 196 in this game. CJ Bailey, I don't want to do this again, Chris. I feel bad doing this. But, it feels like I could smell CJ Bailey being, the best quarterback in the portal class coming up. Where it's like you watch him and you're like, this is a really talented guy. And you see it jumps off immediately. He's really tall. And it's games like this that really make it you feel like this is an impressive group. And so, he throws for 340, 2 touchdowns. He can move a little bit, ran for a score as well. I mean, they were getting everything that they wanted. And Georgia Tech, for all that they are, people spend a lot more time talking about this offense and defensively, a very surprising performance. But
elsewhere in the ACC, Virginia 31, Cal 21. Virginia got a late pick 6 to put this one away. They just keep getting away with it. Duke 46, Clemson 45. There was a very, very not great pass interference call at the end on a 4th down. Would have won the game for Clemson. Duke ends up getting a touchdown, 2-point for the win. Dabo freaked out. They're just lost there at Clemson. There's nothing really else to say other than could somebody in this carousel hire Dabo?
That's one that I think is really interesting. If I'm Dabo, a change of scenery, and if you feel like you're not appreciated at Clemson, which I think that's actually somewhat fair, Chris. Would you say it's sort of fair that maybe what he said has not been
he's gotten everything he wants. The problem is he needs to.
I know, but it's just people lose sight of national championship rings.
Dude, you're 3-5 now. You haven't beaten a
I get it. I get it.
Forever.
I'm just saying.
It's so bad. It's so bad there right now. We don't need to talk more about Clemson. But so here's the ACC standings right now. Virginia's 5-0, and then you have 1-loss teams: Georgia Tech, Pitt, Louisville, SMU, Duke. That's a lot of teams.
Yep.
Some of them play each other, some of them don't. I have no idea where this is going to go, but Pitt closes with Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, Miami. 2-bid ACC could be tough. You probably need Georgia Tech to beat Georgia because you don't have that many great non-conference wins. Yeah. You have Miami over Notre Dame. Could 10-2 Miami? If Miami wins out at 10-2, are they in? I don't know. You can make the case they should be ahead of Notre Dame. 2-loss team with 1 good win. And they lost to Miami. So,
I think we're going to get a sense of this week, Chris, because people forget we have new metrics, the CFP committee, all this stuff. It's a lot more emphasis on strength of schedule. How far is that pendulum going to swing? We can talk about this in a little bit. I wrote about it in my column. We're going to get a preview of that this week of, is it a slight tweak or are we playing a totally different game? Because I think people forget that first year in 2014 was really disorienting for the sport in that for a long time, these teams that would go 11-1, you were kind of defined by your loss. It was well, how can we respect this Ohio State team when they lost to a 6-6 Virginia Tech team? The committee has flipped the sport on its head in that they don't particularly care that much who teams are at their worst. It's who are you at your best? Who have you beaten? And I'm wondering if we might get a little bit of a reset on the sport with these new metrics. Maybe not, but we don't really know.
Well, that's thing. It's very funny, by the way, that Clemson, Florida State, and North Carolina all voted against SMU joining the conference, and SMU beat Clemson this year, beat Florida State last year, beats Miami again this year. And also, by the way, Clemson and Florida State sued the ACC, and the ACC kind of put together these performance incentives where the teams that win more will get more money. Well, guess what? That's not Clemson and Florida State this year. So kind of funny.
Even funnier though, Chris, Virginia being 5-0 in ACC play with a loss to NC State. Welcome to the ACC.
Welcome to the ACC. All right, moving to the SEC. Texas 34, Vandy 31, a game that was only that close because Vandy scored the last 21 points of the game. How about this? Arch Manning's last 4 games, 4-0, 2 top 10 wins, 243 passing yards per game, 65% completions, 8 total touchdowns, 1 interception. Not a flop there. That's pretty solid. Like, that's not Heisman level. It's not coming into the season Heisman favorite, but that's I think what he's done the last 4 games is kind of what maybe the reasonable expectation would have been, which was just like, solid dude, complete the easy passes, don't turn the ball over. That's what he's finally doing.
I think that's fair. But like, hasn't been great. He's been okay.
So in Texas finishes with Georgia, Arkansas, Texas A&M. So 2 top 5 teams. Should Texas be in the playoff mix? Like, I don't know. We'll get to them in a second. But other thing about this game, Texas defensive line completely overwhelmed Vandy.
Yeah.
And that ultimately is the Achilles heel for Vandy. Oklahoma 33, Tennessee 27. David, you were at this game.
Mm-hmm.
Weird game. Oklahoma leading at halftime despite having fewer than 100 yards. But then they kind of turned it on the second half, kicked a bunch of long field goals, and they won. So what was your takeaway from the game?
Frustrating for Tennessee, certainly. Oklahoma, they're not out of the woods, obviously. They still have a ton of difficult games on the schedule. Obviously, they go to Alabama. They play Missouri. They still have LSU as well. So, one of the things I wrote about after the game is if Oklahoma's at 9-3, they might be the test case for these strength of schedule metrics because Oklahoma has a bunch of good wins, but they're 9-3. There's going to be a bunch of teams with fewer losses ahead of them. And last year, we saw, hey, people didn't like Indiana and SMU being in the field. I thought it was clear. People really wanted to see Alabama and Ole Miss and South Carolina.
Well, SEC. Wait, hold on. SEC people in the greater SEC media felt that way. That's not everybody, as we know.
But I will say, Chris, I think most casual fans, when they saw Indiana getting waxed and when SMU looked kind of uncompetitive at Penn State, I think there was an element of this wouldn't happen to Ole Miss. This wouldn't happen to Alabama. Whether or not that's true, I think it's certainly up for debate.
And then it happened to Tennessee, but yeah.
Yes, exactly. So, ultimately, Oklahoma's going to be an interesting team. I think they might be one of the more interesting teams if they can finish 9-3. If they're 10-2, they're definitely getting in. So, Tennessee, there's a lot of consternation involved.
Yeah, like
over the
Tennessee
Josh Heupel stuff. It makes no sense to me. I think people just losses always cause like a crisis of all kinds of things for programs. But for me, it's a 30,000-foot view. Okay. This is a rebuilding year for Tennessee. They went to the playoff last year, lost basically everything, lose their quarterback after spring practice. They've been playing without Jermod McCoy the whole year. He's an All-American corner. They've been playing without their other starting corners, an All-SEC guy. Like, the secondary sucks. Yeah, of course it does. They've been playing without their 2 best corners all season long, pretty much. The offense has been better than you think. The receivers have made a leap. Even Brett Venables after the game was like, man, their offensive line was like night and day from a year ago. I really don't get it. Tennessee's last coach in his best season lost to Georgia State. For 20 years, a rebuilding year at Tennessee has been 4-8. You're sniffing the playoff. You were better than Georgia. You probably should have won that game. You're played poorly at Bama and still a couple plays away from that game being basically a coin flip. And you outplayed Oklahoma and lost because you had a really badly timed scoop and score, and Tate Sendell went beast mode on you in Daisy Dukes. Like,
yes.
What do we like?
Real quick,
I truly don't get the consternation about Josh Heupel. Like, I don't get it at all.
Yeah, I think every fan base now like can't accept any losing whatsoever, and it's
one loss.
It's
like,
what's messing with the coaching.
People always joke about like, oh, one loss, we want to fire everybody, but like we're seeing it, and it's like, guys, like they're gonna be fine. Just it'll be fine.
Jeremy Pruitt, by the way, joining the Jacksonville State staff as an analyst. That's your previous coach. So that's where things are at. I think it's an overreaction too. I think Tennessee's basically performing to expectations, and if a couple things went another way, you're sitting here with 2, maybe 1 loss. So also real quick, the shorts on the kicker for Oklahoma and a lot of players across the country, that is against the rule. It's supposed to cover the knee.
Nobody enforces it.
And I've talked to referees about this, and they're like, we can't be like telling everybody you got to cover your knees. Like, it's on the teams and the coaches to enforce it themselves, and nobody does. And you get that thing out out there. It's quite a scene. Other SEC games real quick. Georgia 24, Florida 20. Another kind of dead cat bounce with an interim coach. Florida nearly won this game. They got stuffed on a 4th and short. Maybe could have put the game away. Some questionable calls there on the catch and stuff like that. Ultimately, I felt like you couldn't overturn what they did, so I got it. Georgia survives. That's kind of what Georgia's been doing. Like, I think they're pretty good, but I also think they can lose to a lot of folks. So there's that. Mississippi State 38, Arkansas 35. Mississippi State's first SEC win in 2 years. Good for them. They've been very close. Bobby Petrino is now 0-4 at Arkansas, 3 losses by 3 points each. But I think it's ultimately the best case scenario where he's not winning games, so you're not going to keep him, and you can actually try to hire a real coach. So the SEC right now, Texas A&M and Alabama both 5-0. Then you've also got 1 loss in the SEC. 1 loss, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Texas in conference play. As we said, Texas is a very difficult schedule remaining. Oklahoma, very difficult schedule remaining. I think, you're looking at here like 4-bit SEC. I don't think 5 is out of the picture. If you're telling me Texas A&M, Bama, Georgia, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, like if Texas loses those games, like it could happen. I think SEC is in a pretty good spot. All right, now let's move on to American Corner, presented to you by Soar the Eagle. North Texas 31, Navy 17. Navy had been undefeated, but North Texas, very impressive performance. They're in the playoff mix. They're in the American mix. 8-1 now. They've bounced back from that loss to USF. Very impressive job by Eric Morris's team here. The defense is so much better this season. Good for them. But the main thing I want to talk about here, David, is that you got a lot of North Texas fans mad at you over the weekend. And for people who have maybe noticed the trend of shirtless fans popping up, starting at Oklahoma State, going to Virginia Tech and some of these other places, it's now happening at seemingly every game.
Tarps off. I will say, Chris, for the record, before you get us yelled at, Indiana fans are claiming this because they did it like 3 years ago.
They did.
And then Birmingham Stallions fans are claiming this because they did it before Indiana. Ultimately, the thing that popped off the trend is Oklahoma State. In this podcast, we acknowledge Oklahoma State as the actual people who made this a thing.
And we did a story on him. It was a bet and he did it. He wasn't thinking about other whatever. But his head started at teams that were very bad. It's now happening everywhere. And David, you had a comment about this, about a North Texas game that got fans very upset at you.
Yes, I did. So there's a clip of them, tarps off and having a whale of a time at their new stadium. I said, this should be reserved for fans enduring horrific seasons and needing to find joy. North Texas is legitimately chasing a playoff spot. Oklahoma State's culture is not your costume. I think that tweet is sitting at like 1.6 million views currently.
Oh my God. Wow.
Listen, the issue is you should not be taking your shirt off and swinging it around when you're in a dogfight to go chase a play. You should be cheering your team on because they're trying to hold off Navy and win a game to capitalize on the greatest season that you ever had. I had a lot of North Texas fans that were mad that were like, have you ever even been to Denton? I lived in Dallas for like 7-8 years. Like, I've been to Denton plenty of times. You know, it's the hippie commune of Dallas-Fort Worth. We get it. Secondly, it's a lot of people like, do you even know the history of our program? Yes, I know Dan McCarney quite well. I'm well aware of the history of North Texas football. I know it hadn't been great for a long time, but it is now. So go be near the field and yell at Navy and get your guys like amped up. Don't be going to in a competitive game that's deciding the top of the American standings. Don't go to the top of the freaking stands and start, go like acting like we're 0-6 and down by 40. That's what's insane to me. Like, the middling teams is kind of whatever, but like the whole point is, hey, this game day is miserable. I would like to have some fun. You're beating one of the last 6 undefeated teams in the country, and you want to talk about, well, our program sucks, so we get to do whatever you want. No, this is the year, North Texas. Embrace it. Get down to the field. Cheer your team on. Make your stadium as loud as it can be. Don't go to the top and start, whirly-birding your shirt. Come on, guys.
So
anyway,
I disagree with your larger point, which is I think anybody can do this now because I think it's fun. I think it's cool. There is legitimately a male loneliness epidemic in this country. And no, this is not solving it. But the idea that guys can feel like we're going to go to a spot in the stadium and just do a dude thing is, I think, pretty endearing. And North Texas AD Jarrett Mosley went into that section, took his shirt off and did it. Dude's jacked, by the way. I don't know if you've ever met Jared. Very tall guy, very big guy. He must have played football somewhere. I haven't talked. I know him a bit, but look it up while I'm talking. He must have played football somewhere, but he's got to be one of the most jacked ADs in the country. I think Illinois' Josh Whitman is probably up there. You probably got a few football playing ADs, but no, look, North Texas has struggled to fill that stadium for a very long time.
Yes.
And I went to the USF game and they sold it out as the first sellout they'd ever had at that stadium, which is like 10 to 20 years old, that stadium.
Yeah,
and
it's a really nice stadium. I've been
if it's something that gets people going, like for a place like North Texas, even in a big game, I'm for it because I think that fires up the whole stadium ultimately, which is what you're trying to get to. So I am fine with it. I understand your point. But I do like it. So,
well, by the way, basketball player at Abilene Christian, so West Texas boy.
Yeah, tall guy, tall guy. All right, well, wanted to make sure we got to that. That blew up in a way that I didn't. By the way, I had a tweet blow up as well during the SMU game. They had pregame trivia, and they said, "What is the name of the stadium?"
Very funny.
So, what is the name of the stadium? It's like George W. Bush Stadium, John F. Kennedy Stadium, Gerald J. Ford Stadium. Meanwhile, like at the top of the scoreboard, it says Gerald J. Ford Stadium because that's what it is. I just looked up. I'm in the press box. I look up. I see it. I go, that's funny. I just take a picture and I tweet it. I did not think that was going to blow up in the way that it did. Bussin' with the Boys is taking it. NFL memes. It went everywhere.
By the way, it should be noted, Gerald J. Ford, not a president, just a business guy who loves SMU and is still very much alive. So a lot of Gerald Fords out there, not the president who passed in 2006 or whatever.
Gerald R. Ford, who played football at Michigan. No. So look, it's better than the last time a pregame trivia thing blew up at a football game I was at.
It's your alma mater, Chris.
I was at Michigan State when Hitler popped up there on the pregame trivia, and I'd walk over to the SID and be like, "Hey, I got to write about this. Do you have a comment about it?" Didn't happen. I did talk to the SMU people. They were like, "No, I think it's fine. Like, it didn't make us look. It wasn't like bad. It was just kind of funny and quirky." By the way, the rest of the trivia,
generally, I think as a rule, if I'm an AD, just probably keep the Jumbotron Hitler free. Just in general, that's probably a good baseline rule, I would say.
Yeah. All right, we're going too long on this pod. We got to speed up. UTSA 48, Tulane 26. My bad. As the resident guy who hyped up John Sumrall for a couple of weeks on this podcast and earlier on this podcast. Yeah, man, like Tulane, UTSA just destroyed him. Owen McCown had 2 or 3 incompletions, one of which was a drop.
31 to 33, I think, for 340. Yeah, it could be like I don't envy the coaches. Like the John Sumrall situation is kind of echoing like the end of the Tom Herman era at Houston, where like it seems obvious that he's going to have so many people coming after him that it's going to be very hard for him to say no. And how you keep a team invested in that is really, really hard. Brief story. I was going to write that story about Tom Herman and about, like, as a coach, you want to invest in your guys. You love your guys, but you know all these people are coming. People kind of knew he was either going to go to LSU or Texas. So I went to SMU, actually, to cover a game and to talk to Tom after the game about that exact dynamic. And then they lost. And Tom was like, I'm not going to do that interview. So I don't envy them. Like, it's a hard dynamic, and it could be a long month at Tulane. And so we'll see. If it does go south and all of a sudden people convince themselves that John Summerall isn't good, this is not a problem that I think is going to happen at a higher level. Maybe some team gets them at a discount. We'll see.
The American now is crazy. With one loss, you've got Navy, Memphis, North Texas, Tulane, South Florida, ECU. So
awesome.
And you got Memphis and Tulane next week, UTSA, USF next week. I still think the winner of this conference is going to get the playoff spot, but I will say San Diego State and James Madison, both 7-1, not out of it. But I think the American is, unless they all beat up each other and they all end up with like 3 losses, which is possible. There's that. So a lot going on there. Big Ten. Ohio State 38, Penn State 14. Weird game that was close at halftime before Ohio State pulls away. Julian Sayin, a guy that nobody was really talking about because we didn't really have a reason to watch Ohio State games, even though his numbers are kind of incredible. He was incredible again. And he might, I think he might be your betting favorite Heisman leader right now. Just any thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, here's my issue with the idea of Julian Sayin as a Heisman leader is Ohio State's greatness is predicated upon its defense. That's why they're an elite team. And Sayin has played really, really well. But he hasn't been in like a lot of pressure spots where you got to have a throw. You got to make a play. And I don't, so I'm hesitant there. Also, did we see Nick Saban revisionist history on College Game Day regarding Julian Sayin? So Nick Saban's on College Game Day and is telling this fable of, the Alabama coach that had him, kept him on scout team for a whole year. Julian Sayin was at Alabama for like 2 weeks. What are we talking about? He signed there, and then I think he was practicing with the bowl in the ahead of the bowl game. Yeah, but he obviously wasn't eligible to play, and then left for Ohio State. I don't know what Nick's talking about. So
yeah, I don't know if he was joking or just kind of doing.
It was a funny joke. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're talking about.
Ohio State, look, they're going to be 11-0 with Michigan coming to town. Indiana destroyed Maryland. They finished with Penn State, Wisconsin, Purdue. Indiana, I don't think is losing either. So we're going to have Indiana, Ohio State, unless Michigan upsets Ohio State, in which case I don't know exactly where that goes.
Well, that can't happen, obviously, Chris.
But who knows? But so that is the situation with the Big Ten. It still feels like Ohio State, Indiana. If they're both undefeated going into that game, I think they're both getting first round buys in the playoff. USC 20, a team that's not out of it. USC 21, Nebraska 17. Dylan Rhule out for the year with a broken fibula, which is really tough. Got hurt late in that game. Credit to USC fighting back, but I thought the game management by Matt Rhule, not great.
No.
He is now 2-24 against ranked teams, 8 straight of those losses at Nebraska. They did lock him up to a new contract, which I saw some people being like, this is too much. He may not be worth it, but I will say it was a very school-friendly extension. It's just 2 years, no raises, unless he makes the playoff. Then he gets raises, which I think is how it should go, ultimately. Incentive-based. The buyout, it's like pushed back. It's like $49 million this year, but that gets like pushed back 2 years because they added 2 years to it. So it's currently $70 million right now. But you're not firing him right now, so it doesn't matter ultimately. Like the program is still on a positive trajectory, and ultimately, I don't think Nebraska committed all that much more to him.
Yeah.
So I think it's a perfectly fine extension. I saw some people thinking like, "Oh, why would you do this? This is why you don't." It wasn't like they didn't give him a Jimbo deal, Like it's going to be okay. So that's the Big 10.
12?
We talked about those. Big 12, we'll hit this one quickly.
Kind of a quiet week in the league.
Yeah, Texas Tech 43, Kansas State 20.
Squashed. K-State dominated on the line of scrimmage. Texas Tech. When Texas Tech starts leaning on teams, man, they are scary. They are scary.
Yep. Utah 45, Cincinnati 14. Woof. Not as close as Cincinnati had points or had yards, but they couldn't finish drives. 3 turnovers. Utah had a punt return touchdown. Good on Utah. They're not out of this now. 7-2. No. They've kind of righted the ship there. West Virginia 45, Houston 35, upsets Houston. They're kind of
weird result.
Tougher spot. They were in a favorable position. They no longer are. Arizona State 24, Iowa State 19. Without Sam Leavitt, good for Arizona State to keep fighting. Kenny Dillingham, they keep bouncing back. So Big 12 situation. BYU's undefeated. Then you have 1 loss, Texas Tech and Cincinnati. And folks, next week we've got Texas Tech BYU in Lubbock.
Baller.
Finally.
I can't wait. It's going to be a fantastic game.
This was the big game we've been waiting for. Winner of this game, very much obviously in the driver's seat. And if you're looking for 2-bid Big 12 here, you're probably looking at BYU wins, goes undefeated, loses in the Big 12 championship game. That's probably your best path to 2 bids. But if Texas Tech loses to BYU, then Cincinnati is still sitting there in second place. So
yeah. Also, I hate that this game is at noon. Just
I didn't even look. Is it? Oh,
yes. Texas Tech playing a huge game at noon is outrageous, and I think Texas Tech fans are also mad. Are the Chiefs off next weekend?
I don't know. It's the NFL. I don't pay attention.
Well, there seemed to be a lot of conversation about the possibility of Pat Mahomes coming back and being a guest picker. Regardless,
he can't play in the game, by the way. I mean,
are you sure?
Maybe he can. He could probably sue his way back into playing. Who knows?
Probably,
by the way,
probably.
BYU, not only do they have Texas Tech next, they then have Cincinnati. So like we're gonna get those big 12 games here coming up. Exciting time. All right, other games of note real quick. Notre Dame 25, Boston College 10. Bizarre game. I think 3 different Notre Dame kickers missed field goals, if I have that right. That's a problem. Could be a problem in a big game. Jeremiah Love has a 90-something yard run, puts it away. I do think
Jeremiah Love is actually the best player, I think, maybe in the country.
Might be.
I don't think enough people are talking about him.
I do think Notre Dame starting 0-2 ultimately helped their playoff case because now they are just simply seeing 2 lost teams fall below them because they're newer losses. I don't know if I still wonder if Miami should be ahead of Notre Dame because Notre Dame has 1 good win. It was USC. That's it. The resume is not great, but I think the committee is going to like him. We'll see. North Carolina 27, Syracuse 10. North Carolina gets an ACC win. Finally, it took them playing a Syracuse team that put a lacrosse player in at quarterback.
That was walk on true freshman. Like, dude, how? Like, listen. They
were winning at half. And by the way, in Syracuse winning at halftime still.
Yeah, he was like 1 of 11 for his first 12 passes for like 20 yards. Notably, Trevor Pena left because he didn't think Ricky Collins was very good. The Trevor Pena decision has aged quite well. Ricky Collins, pretty hyped transfer coming in from LSU. Hadn't played, but was pretty well regarded. I think he was a 4-star guy. Getting benched for a walk-on true freshman is wild. And then that guy, it was not good. He looked scared. But on the other side of this, North Carolina clearly improving week by week. I felt like the breakthrough was probably coming this week against a Syracuse team that is a mess right now. And they run the ball pretty well. Damon June, I think, has been their guy that every time I watch them. It's
Demon June on Halloween.
Yeah. But he every time I've watched him, I'm like, this guy has the most pop on this team. Gio Lopez, he's made some pretty good throws. Like they're figuring some stuff out. I still think the roster has their ceiling really, really low, but they've clearly, been competitive since the Clemson game. So we'll see. I said at the start of the season, Chris, North Carolina looks really bad. The tell on how this might go is if you see them make a lot of improvement toward the end of the season. And right now it seems like they are. We'll see if that continues. There's still a month left. So North Carolina breaks. That's Bill Belichick's first Power 4 win.
Yes. New Mexico 40, UNLV 35. New Mexico, bowl eligible, Jason X first season. He took over a 5-win team from Bronco Mendenhall who lost everybody. Devin Dampier left, all the coaches left, pretty much every contributing major player. He comes in. There's like 70 new guys on this team. It's the third different head coach in 3 years. And they go up and beat UNLV. And they're 6-3.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome. I know people are wondering if Jason X is going to get another job. I don't really want to talk about that in the segment. I want New Mexico to be able to enjoy this win and have a winner. I wrote a story before the season about them, about that state, about how unique it is. And Jason X really got the people excited. And they sold out the New Mexico State game for the first sellout in like almost 20 years. And now they're winning too. So it's just really cool. Like New Mexico, like no pro teams, but they got college teams. Good for them. UConn 39, UAB 19. Third bowl game in 4 years for Jim Mora at UConn for a program we thought was dead when Randy Edsall quit 2 games into the season.
Yep.
Doing a good job.
Yeah, he is. UConn is just like capable. They have been for quite some time. So shout out to the Huskies.
Kennesaw State 33, UTEP 20. Kennesaw State bowl eligible. First year they're fully bowl eligible. After the FCS transition. Jerry Mack doing a good job there.
Yeah, he really is.
Where'd he come from? He was at Tennessee. He comes straight from Tennessee.
At the Jags. No, he was at the Jags. Which, by the way, for the Josh Heupel haters, Josh Heupel, low key, a nice little coaching tree he's got going. Jerry Mack cooking obviously at Kennesaw. Alex Golish doing really good things at USF. I think Tim Banks is going to probably get a job this offseason. We'll see.
Pretty good. Oregon State 10, Washington State 7. The first of a 2-game Pac-12 season. These two teams play each other twice. This was the first game. They also played it close to regular season. And we're going to count this as like a soccer 2-game leg for the Pac-12 championship. So we go into the second game, Oregon State holding a 3-point lead. Credit to Oregon State for not quitting, man. This was a team that looked dead in the water, fired the coach, kind of a mess. Washington State had been playing very well.
Yeah, they've been all over the map this year. I thought Washington was going to destroy them in this game.
Yeah, Washington State was like a 3-point favorite, and I was like, that was one of my wild card picks. That's an easy one. No, so good for Oregon State. Hot seat update. Not much of an update other than Hugh Freeze, which we talked about. Florida State beats Wake 42-7.
That was wild. Good. That's going to go down as one of the more astounding results of the season, I think.
Good showing. I think Florida State was like a 9.5-point favorite. I think you said in Slack, you're like, this is one of those games where it feels too obvious to pick Wake and Florida State wins going away.
Well, it's because our colleague Matt Baker had Wake minus. He was like, I sprinted to make Wake minus 8.5 my wild card. I said, I mean, that makes sense on paper, but it just screamed trap to me. That it's just like, this is one of those games that everybody on the internet yelling about free money and then Florida State wins outright. But I didn't think it'd be like this. So there you go.
Yeah, I think Florida State, it's the same situation where they don't want to have to put in a $50 million buyout. They really are just like, Mike, can you please just get to 7-5 and we'll take you into next year. Like that's all they're really hoping for. Step in the right direction. Minnesota 23, Michigan State 20 in overtime. I mean, this was Jonathan Smith's team played harder. They benched Aiden Childs, started the backup, whose name is hard to pronounce. Played pretty well. Offense did pretty well. They took the lead with 2 minutes left. Then they give up a touchdown drive to close it. In overtime, some very questionable flags. A pass interference is called on Minnesota. Then they pick it up late. Then there's a call against Michigan State in the next drive, and everybody's mad, understandably. I still think Michigan State does not want to have to fire Jonathan Smith. They do not have a ton of money. They do not want to be in this market. This is not the game to fire him over, though. It was a good effort. You maybe should have won the game. Still not what you want. Baylor 30, UCF 3. Needed bounce back for Dave Aranda after some notable alumni in media basically said,
if this score is reversed, I think he's probably done. If that score is reversed.
Alive for another week. And then Arizona 52, Colorado 17. And Deion's not on the hot seat to get fired, but it's the kind of thing where they've been outscored 105-24, I think, in the last 2 weeks. Just two stunningly bad losses to okay teams. They're 3-6 now. Deion's got the known health issues. This is not inside information for me. It kind of feels like this might be a spot where Deion steps away. His kids aren't there. His health is a problem. I think people would understand it. Is that crazy?
Counterpoint. They let him do anything he wants at Colorado. He wants to take some time off. He can do that. They're paying him $10 million. They're not going to fire him. I have never been paid $10 million to do a job, but if I did, I don't think I would walk away. So
I guess, but I mean, like, he's got a lot of money. Go do some media stuff and go. I guess Shitter's not playing, so you can't go watch him. But like, I don't know. Just weird. Anyway, that's just my speculation. We don't know for sure. All right, time to go to the helmet stickers, where we talk about a big time player who maybe didn't get enough attention for their performance on Saturday. And my helmet sticker goes to the entire team of Snow College, junior college in Utah.
You get mad at me for picking 2 people. You're picking like 100 guys, Chris.
Look, they beat Community Christian College 101-6. I looked up the box score to make sure this was real. We've seen a lot of these, D3, D2, FCS teams get into the 90s. They rarely ever get to 100. And so when someone did get into 100, I had to do it. It was 60-6 at halftime, like 81-6 at the end of 3. Snow College had 3 defensive touchdowns and 2 safeties. The only score for Community Christian College was a pick 6. Snow College had some notable coaches have gone through there. A lot of the Utah guys sometimes make a stop at Snow College. So I'm going to give it to junior college there. 101 points. Nobody had any numbers there that were like, oh, this guy had 8 touchdowns. I have to pick him. So that's why I just ultimately picked the whole team.
Chris, the most famous alum of Snow College, we've talked about quite a bit on this show.
Who?
Josh Heupel.
Oh, I knew that. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, a lot of guys have come through there. I think Gary Anderson might have gone through there or something, but that's what I mean. Like, it's produced some things. Yeah, Snow College is where Mike Leach found him from. And I
believe so.
And went to Oklahoma from there. Gary Anderson did not go there, by the way. But yeah, Snow College, Josh Heupel. Good coach.
There you go. Well, that's not what I hear, but that's what I see. My helmet sticker goes to Arizona State legend Jeff Sims. 228 rush yards, 2 touchdowns, 177 pass yards for a touchdown. He helped Arizona State beat Iowa State for his first win as a quarterback since 2022. Listen, I think sometimes college football fans, far too often, guys' values as human beings are tied too closely to their values as players. Jeff Sims has been through a lot. He's played some not great football at times in his career at 3 different places, from Georgia Tech to Nebraska to Arizona State, has lost position battles, all this stuff. But after the game, Kenny Dillingham tweeted that Jeff Sims is everything that is right about college football. And some of these guys are some of my favorite players to cover, Chris, of the guys that, like, they're probably never going to be an All-American. They're probably not going to get invited to a Heisman ceremony, but, like, they're great teammates. They keep plugging away. They keep working. Coaches love them. And after the game, Jeff Sims, celebrating. His teammates were putting him on their shoulders. He ran off to the sidelines, got a big, long hug from his parents. It was cool to see. So shout out to Jeff Sims. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find very many people in college football that have a better weekend. So tip my cap to Jeff Sims.
Yeah, he is kind of one of those, like, the guy that everybody will just make fun of online when they see his name. And that's not fair. And I think, as we've said in this pod, like, when you get a chance to kind of spend some time inside a football program, like I did at Tulane, you've done it some places, like, you realize, like, yeah, not realize, but, like, it emphasizes, like, these are all people, like,
and a lot of them just kids, like really, especially as you get older, like these are kids, like they're.
I mean, Jeff Sims probably not a kid at this point, but other people, and like, yeah, Arizona State's been through a lot, man, and Sam Levitt's now out for the year, and Jeff Sims comes in, has to take control for an Arizona State team that's had a disappointing season, and you're playing a decent Iowa State team, and you put up those numbers. Like, yeah, that is good. Good for him. Happy for him. Happy for Arizona State.
And good coaching adjustments, honestly, from Kelly Dillingham, because it was a disaster the first time he went out, and they clearly emphasized the quarterback run game, and it worked. Iowa State, that's not a slouch, and great win for them. Awesome to see.
The OC there, Marcus Arroyo, former UNLV coach, maybe a guy who might get a G5 job in this cycle or something like that.
Could be.
All right. Jeff Sims might be a guy pretty soon who ends up in this segment, but we end
legitimately. Yeah.
We end this show by doing what we always do, and that is by remembering some guys.
It's better than this. Guys being dudes.
Now I'm going to go with Garrett Gilbert, former Texas and SMU quarterback. I went with him because I was at the SMU game over the weekend. Gilbert, maybe most famously, thrust into the 2009 championship game against Alabama when Colt McCoy got hurt and ultimately lost that game. Played a couple years at Texas.
I gotta step in. Does Texas win the national championship if Colt McCoy doesn't have a super weird nerve injury in his shoulder, courtesy of Marcel Darius?
I don't think so. I think that was Alabama was becoming the machine at that point, and I don't think it would have made a difference. Would have kept the game closer. It was kind of a weird, boring game at the Rose Bowl, by the way. Beautiful stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Went on to SMU, played there for a couple of years, became a 6th round pick, and was still in the NFL as of 2022 with the Patriots practice squad for a minute there. Doesn't look like he's there anymore, but yeah, Garrett Gilbert, super hyped up high school Texas quarterback who didn't live up to that hype, but had some kind of interesting enough moments where I think he's somebody in college football you kind of just still remember. Oh yeah, that was the guy who came into that championship game and then later on went on to SMU and like played pretty well, got drafted. So like, yeah, that's my guy.
Yeah. In honor of our shirtless friends in North Texas, my guy of the week is North Texas quarterback Riley Dodge. This was one of my favorite experiments in college football because I've wondered for a long time, Chris, as you have, why North Texas has not been better at football. They're like any G5 program, there's money issues. But when you're in the DFW area, you can get a lot of transfer bounce backs, all this stuff. And they swung big. And what year was it? It was back in 2007. They decided to bring in Todd Dodge. And his son, Riley Dodge, was a star quarterback at South Lake Carroll, same powerhouse high school that's produced Greg McElroy, friend of the show, Chase Daniel, our colleague. South Lake Carroll has been, one of the best programs in the country.
Wait. Greg McElroy has not been on this show. How is he friend of the show?
Friend of us on the show.
We'll get him on.
We'll get him on. Anyway, and Riley Dodge, obviously his son. That experiment went very, very poorly, but I remember it because I appreciated North Texas trying something and maybe trying something like Todd Dodge on the short list of greatest Texas high school football coaches of all time. It went very poorly at North Texas. He went 6-37, 3-23 in the Sun Belt, but I remember it. So we are here remembering some guys. And Riley Dodge, by the way, briefly Texas quarterback coach. Now he is the head coach at South Lake Carroll. I presume he's doing quite well there. I couldn't tell you. But shout out to Riley Dodge.
In a couple years ago, Riley and Todd, father and son and father, faced off in the state championship game.
I think I remember this. Yeah.
And the father's team won. So yeah, Riley's still there doing a good job. Yeah. Texas high school football. That is coming up, by the way. State playoffs have started here.
Also a friend of the show, Greg Tepper, has bullied me endlessly because I have
also
never
has not
been
on the show.
Yeah, I've never been to the state championships. It is one of my great regrets. The problem is it's spectacularly scheduled in like the worst possible weekend where I've been like out of town, like the college football season's over, and like after championship week, like those 2 weeks before like bowl season started, like I'm trying to take back my weekends. So like going to the championships, I would love to, but I need them to schedule it around when I would like to do it, and no one seems willing to do that. So unfortunately, I've never been, but it is on my list of things I would like to go to in my life.
It's at AT&T Stadium. I went 2 years ago for the first time because where I live, Anna, they made the state championship for the first time, and they won. They won states. They hadn't made the playoffs in like 60 years until they hired coach from Lubbock, made him really good. Seth Parr, brother coaches at Louisiana Tech. He coached Sawyer Robertson in high school, now at Baylor. Everybody in
Is he
Texas
related to Logan Parr at SMU?
No, they're not. I looked that up. I did look that up.
Okay.
Anyway, whatever. Texas high school football is good. College football playoff is coming down the pike here. We'll be live on Tuesday on the YouTube channel. As soon as the rankings go off the air, maybe before that. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Bunch of information. Looking forward to getting into that, reacting, finally having some real rankings to react to. Should be a lot of fun. That's going to do it here. I cannot wait for the final month of this season is going to be insane.
Let's go.
We just looked up conferences. I have no idea who's going to win any of these leagues. It's going to be fun.
It's awesome.
It's awesome.
Oh, man.
ESPN, YouTube TV, get it together, please. I would like to watch all the games easily on Saturday. So, for David Ubben, I am Chris Vannini. We are Bunch Formation. Thank you for listening, and we will talk to you on Tuesday night.
And bring back the turnover chain, especially you, YouTube TV.
I think I stole the turnover chain when I stormed the field.
Nice.
Mine now.